So Abby Martin is somehow still let into these events. Like, for self-preservation, I'm happy she's there. I'm thrilled she's there. But it is amazing to me how this happens, I feel like, every year or every few months. Abby Martin is able to ask a biting question to one of our government officials about the blatant hypocrisy of our foreign policy and our approach to countries like Israel and Saudi Arabia. And here she is at the ASU California Center on this Journalistic Freedom Conference where Tony Blinken, Secretary of State, was speaking, and she gets to ask him a question, and it's a good one.
And actually, I think she kind of, I don't know if she's even asked or she just jumps in here.
Oh, well, right.
Secretary Blinken, what about Shireen Abu Akleh? She was murdered by Israeli forces, right? CNN just agreed to this. These are your two greatest allies in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Israel. They have murdered American journalists, and there have been absolutely no repercussions. And you're sitting up here talking about the freedom of press and democracy. The United States is denying sovereignty to tens of millions of people around the world with draconian sanctions for electing leaders that you do not like. Why is there no accountability for Israel or Saudi Arabia for murdering journalists? It is one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a journalist in Palestine.
I deplore the loss of Shireen. She was a remarkable journalist, an American citizen, as you all know.
Yeah.
And there too, we are determined to follow the facts and get to the truth of what happened.
Secretary Blinken,
No,
all due
they have not
respect.
been, no, I'm sorry, with respect, they have not yet been established.
Yes,
We're
it
looking
has.
for, no, they have not. We're looking for an independent, credible investigation. When that investigation happens, we will follow the facts wherever they lead. It's as straightforward as that.
But pause it for a sec.
But it's something that we very much want to see happen.
Okay.
And we'll have time after the panel, of course.
All right, I thought there was a little bit more to that. There is no possibility for a credible investigation because, as was asked of Ned Price a few weeks ago by the AP journalist Matt Lee, there's no way for the Palestinians to have proportionate representation in what will be a rigged kangaroo court process held by the Israeli government. I mean, Abby just killed it there, and she kept going at him. And, like, when he adds that Shireen Abu Akleh was an American citizen there, like, Jamal Khashoggi was a dissident who lived here in the United States. There is seemingly nothing that Israel or Saudi Arabia could do to one of our own or people that are in our orbit that would change this posture towards both of those countries. We have a relationship with them that is, in their opinion, strategic, and so there will be zero accountability for it.
And we've seen this before. I mean, Rachel Corrie, I mentioned her a few months ago. She was the young 18-year-old activist in Palestine, an American young woman who was mysteriously run over by a bulldozer in the occupied territory.
So mysterious.
And you know that so-called independent investigation into the who's probably going to be doing that, and that's what whose word they're going to take, the Israeli military, who also said for Rachel Corrie it was an accident, she was just in the way.
Yeah,
well, that's why this is lies. Like the independent investigation, we know. Like, there are investigations that have been done. I mean, CNN, Abby mentions, Bellingcat, which is basically like a one step removed from Western intelligence, also says it was Israel. So and
it was obvious from from the way that you could see the angle, the ballistics, the fact that it was a sniper, she was wearing a press vest. It's conclusive.
And you can be damn sure that if CNN or Bellingcat made conclusions about like Palestinians doing something, that there wouldn't be this much hemming and hawing over. Oh, we need a different independent.
Yeah.
Like, what are those? Like, maybe like just address, is CNN not an independent outlet? Like, what statement are you making about the American media there? I thought Trump was the only one that does stuff like that.
At the Press Freedom Conference, interesting.
And Blinken can't even define really what the independent investigation would be, because it's not going to be one that's credible.
And I mean, I love that she drew that comparison between Jamal Khashoggi and Shireen Abu Akleh, because I made that actual comparison on Twitter and I was criticized. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. In terms of our relationship with Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, Biden said, as Bradley pointed out yesterday, we're going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah. And he's about to go to Saudi Arabia to hobnob with MBS and say, please just give us your oil. in a few weeks. So there is a comparison there. Both of our relationships with Israel and Saudi Arabia are entirely contrary to the flowery notions that are espoused by people like Blinken and Biden about our relationship with press freedom and democracy all over the world, which is just, it's fanciful in and of itself, given our own human rights record. But it is incredibly valuable to make that connection and to call it out because, as Abby mentioned, journalists are getting killed way too regularly, I should say, honestly, in Palestine. And the United States has not updated our relationship. They just waited out this PR issue for them, which is limited, honestly, frankly, given our media's coverage of Israel, Palestine. And that was that. And so he has no real answer for that. And she illustrated that well.
Someone tried to tell you that there was that to not conflate those two, those two cases. I mean, that's as in Khashoggi's killing was worse somehow. I'm assuming, like, thinking that was the right. Unbelievable. And funny thing is too, like, I think they're absolutely equivalent in terms of bringing them both up. But even if you don't, the way that people in this country, and I don't agree with this because I think human beings are human beings regardless, but the way most people in this country look at it is American citizens come first, right? And one was an American citizen, even by that backward standpoint, and it wasn't Khashoggi.
I definitely... Yeah. I was going to say I agree with Emma as well. I mean, I think it's important to make that comparison and to draw that direct connection because a big reason, like you were saying, for why, we are supposedly giving large sums of American money to Israel is because they represent some sort of unique democratic opportunity and haven in the Middle East, and it's important to both recognize not only that our interference in the Middle East has led to multiple democracies collapsing and being overturned and couped, but also they don't even at this moment represent anything other than an apartheid state for, the Palestinians living there. And so, making sure that we draw these direct connections between one brutal, dictatorship and another brutal apartheid state is just to, rip the veil off of what is essentially a propaganda campaign. And all Blinken is hoping for is that, like, it's buried by a news cycle. That by the time, like Israel's investigation into their own shooting of a journalist is, finished, it'll be like, we'll be deep in the midterms. We won't be able to talk about that. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And that's just the way our media works. But I think, Matt's point is, important. You got to hammer home that, like, American life is just not worth what a lot of Americans think it is, because that's also a key factor of how people understand our imperialism, that we have to go over there to protect over here because American life is somehow uniquely worthwhile. And if, the pandemic didn't prove that to be a lie, and at least in like the eyes of our government, then certainly continued killings of American or American affiliated journalists abroad should, you would hope, continue to make cracks in that sort of narrative.
100%.
All right.